What are the best ways to advance your career as an up-and-coming filmmaker? What are the best ways to network strategically to land bigger filmmaking gigs? How do you make time to still pursue the filmmaking dream while you work other survival jobs in the big city? In this video, we'll answer all of those questions and more, so let's get into the 5 best ways to advance your film career. If you're new here, I'm Jordan, and welcome back to my channel. This channel is all about filmmaking techniques, the philosophy of art, and essentially what filmmaking can teach us about life. All right, so with that, let's get into the 5 best ways to advance your film career. Reason number 1. Hone your craft. Really taking the time to intricately study, refine, and hone your craft no matter what side of the industry you're on is absolutely essential. This is something you probably have already been doing if you went to film school or if you're studying a specific trade craft for one of the crew positions, but this is something you should continue to keep doing even after you finish school and you get out into the real world. I always recommend treating your craft as if it's a continued education no matter what stage of your career that you're in. This will do a few things for you. It will allow you to acquire a proper caliber of skill level since this industry is very competitive, and if your skill set doesn't match up to people who have been doing this for years, if you don't constantly push yourself, you will get left behind by those who do constantly push themselves and always continue to evolve as the industry does. This also puts you into a growth type mindset that really pushes you to try to take new risks, step outside your comfort zone, and constantly puts you into the role of a beginner. And it just really makes you that much more hireable. Try new techniques, and if you specialize in one type of genre like horror, maybe try a different genre like comedy and see if that's something you also have skill set at, or just get better at it. Try learning a different department on sets, roles or concepts or jargon, or just how their department actually functions from a structural level. Learn new software, gear, jargon, equipment, pipelines, and workflows. If one job is not really working out for you and it's very saturated, then you can also step into a different role and get hired over here while this role is just much harder to fill. I want to steal a piece of knowledge that I got from a great book by Mike Ovitz, who is the former super agent and one of the founders of Creative Artists Agency, one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. So Mike has a book called Who is Mike Ovitz, in which he talks a lot about his early career and how they started CAA and basically his work habits that got him to be this massively successful figure in the industry that he was. In his book, he talks about how he purchased a subscription to every major trade publication, and every month he would read every single one of them so that whenever he had a client that he wanted to talk about a specific topic with, such as cars or interior decor, he developed a great working knowledge of essentially every single trade that was really out there. This really helped him become an even better businessman and visionary so that he could also really improve his own business and company, since he had a great understanding of the general landscape and how everything works together as a greater system. So I really come from more of a drama, literary, and performing arts background, but a few years ago I started to notice that my technical knowledge on the filmmaking side wasn't quite as great, and that was something I actively sought to get better at. So what did I do? I took Mike Ovitz's advice and I started reading a lot more of the technical industry publications, such as American Cinematographer, and I also started reading ones like Cinefex, the Visual Effects Society Handbook. I'll put together a comprehensive list in the description below. Reason number 2. Always make time for the side hustle. If you live in a city like New York or LA, it is very important to make sure that you pay the bills while you still pursue the dream, even if that means you have to do it on the side. So it's great if you're able to get your survival job within the industry that you're trying to break into. Some of these entry-level roles in the entertainment industry include being a production assistant on set or being an assistant or a receptionist. If you can get a more specific type of PA or assistant role, such as being a PA for a specific department like camera, if your dreams are to be in camera department, that's really helpful. The biggest cons about getting jobs within the entertainment field is that oftentimes the hours are incredibly demanding, and a lot of times this doesn't always leave you a ton of time in your schedule to work on the side hustle, which is bad. On the other hand, getting a survival job that is outside of the industry, such as working at a restaurant or a cafe, etc. So sometimes having a job that just pays your bills and it gives you plenty of time and the headspace and the mental power to actually work on your side hustle is more important sometimes than having an industry job that burns you out and gives you no time to actually work on your passion. Either way, whichever route you take, what is absolutely imperative is that you're always making time on the side of whatever your main hustle is to make money. So if you're a director, you better be trying to get your own projects off the ground, even if they're very small and they're low budget. My career journey in LA has included hundreds of different freelance gigs as a PA or in the camera department that I have really used to inform my journey and have advanced my career in various ways, even if just subconsciously. And for me, I always made a conscious effort, no matter what job I had and however I had to make money, to always make time to write scripts and get them made and get them into production. Whatever it takes to chase that dream, you should do it. Reason number 3. Network strategically. I would argue that it's not networking, but it's how you network that's even more important. But let's get into some smarter ways that you can go about being a little more strategic with your networking. So I separate networking into 2 major categories. The first one is strategic networking, and the second is spontaneous networking. So what is targeted networking? Targeted networking really applies to networking that you are strategically setting out to do. A good example of this is, let's say you're trying to get a manager for representation. You send out a query email with the intention to get them to reply and check out your materials to try to get them to be your representative. Spontaneous networking applies much more to a situation where you're out at an industry party or a screening and you run into somebody and start up a random conversation about something, and that could become a networking opportunity very quickly depending on who the person is and if they might be in that position to help you. Some of the best resources you could use for targeted networking are IMDb Pro, LinkedIn, and yes, sometimes even social media. What's great about IMDb Pro is that it often lists all of the representatives or the contacts on a certain project. The cool thing is a lot of times their email info is put right there. So once I get that info, the best thing I can do is try to figure out the best strategy with how I have a targeted approach to reach out to that actor's agent and try to start that dialogue and make it worth their while. This is one of those things where sometimes formulating a cold email or a cold reach out, but doing it in a very elegant way, could be that thing that ends up getting you that job. Just because you got strategic and you took the initiative. Really make sure you have a very concise blurb about what you're gonna say, how you're gonna pitch yourself. Really make sure to be conscious of people's time and don't take more than a few minutes. To be interesting, you have to be interested. So let's talk about spontaneous networking. So in a city like LA, you're gonna have tons and tons of random encounters with people. So my advice here is to try to really get good at defining how you describe yourself. And in the same way that I would come up with a great pitch that's concise, clear, and interesting, I almost try to think of it the same way that I would pitch myself as a professional too. Market test it and see, are people engaged with you? Do they keep asking you questions about yourself, or do they not? People really can sniff out disingenuousness. So you definitely want to make sure that you are doing these things for the right reasons. Reason number 4. Study the business as an artist. Oftentimes it's not as fun to think about things like the business side or how financing comes together for a project. Having an awareness of what market trends are popular, which ones are not, really helps allow you to position your specific projects, if you're an artist, so that you put them in the best position to succeed. So for example, if you're trying to pitch a drama film and drama just isn't currently hot right now, maybe you try pivoting to a horror, and maybe that's how you launch your career, and that launches you in one fell swoop. Understanding the market and how some of these projects come together is also a really good way to understand how to angle your project. And again, if you have that right angle at the right time and the market's right for it, that could be the fastest way to advance your career in one fell swoop. The business and market are constantly evolving, so I think it's really important to constantly stay on top of the news and the trades and always stay on top of how the industry is changing and evolving. That way you can always be current and know how you can best position yourself to succeed depending on the role that you have. There's some great podcasts and publications like Matthew Bellany's The Town or Script Notes hosted by John August and Greg Mazin. So I listen to those religiously, and I read some other great publications that I'll put all the links to below. For my own career, studying the financial and business sides of the film industry has been extremely critical critical, especially in the last year, since I'm in the midst of pitching an independent feature. And so understanding how the financing comes together, how to pitch these things, how these things even happen, and has actually helped me get much closer to getting the film made because I have an understanding of how this process works. Reason number 5, land representation or an advocate. It is absolutely essential to land representation or an advocate who is further along in their career to go to bat for you. This opens so many different doors and opportunities that you would never be able to get on your own. But to do that, you have to position yourself so that it appears that you will have great potential in this industry. They can give you access to opportunities in a way that you don't have access to yourself. They have the kind of industry contacts that can truly open doors for you, and they also have the ability to negotiate for you, really is that person that can really help you land work and goes out and tries to actively find it for you. They can also negotiate higher pay raises on your behalf, so you don't have to be the bad guy. And it also further legitimizes you, since if you have a bigger name agent from a bigger agency, it makes you look like you're that much further along in your career and you can actually generate income and are somebody worth betting on. One of the other crucial components is that sometimes studios or production companies won't even take pitches or materials unless it comes from a representative like an agent or a manager, since legally this can get them in trouble and expose them. Having another great advocate, such as a respected actor, an executive, somebody who's just further along the chain, they can help you get past that proverbial hump of breaking into the industry simply with a phone call or just saying that they want you to have this position, and sometimes that's all it takes to happen. Landing an agent, manager, or advocate can be very tricky, so I will definitely do a future video where I give my tips on landing representation or an advocate in the best way. And they often have a holistic view of the big picture of your career and how you can really try to get ahead just by being a little more strategic on the front end. So it's always important to make sure that your reps are actually working for you and not against you. A rep or an advocate shouldn't be a complete one-size-fits-all for career advancement, but it certainly helps. That concludes the 5 best ways to advance your career as a filmmaker. Comment below if you have any other ideas that you want me to add to this list. If you've never made a film before but want to know how, I have a full case study series on how I made my short film, Cuddle Buddies. Let me know if there are any other topics you want to see covered in a future video, and I will definitely make sure to cover them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will definitely catch you next week where we continue to talk about filmmaking topics. So I will definitely catch you then.